that's done. That's completely live. This is technically episode 11. Unfortunately, the episode with Keaton is currently lost in the abyss. It'll come back. We'll bring it back. But with me today is my good friend, Adam. And we have a kind of an interesting relationship. We met through... I'll leave that part blank. But we met. He's a good guy. And he actually has helped me out in several ways. And most significantly, we'll touch on that later. But give a little background with Adam. Former law enforcement. A founding member of Effective Fitness, and that is a pretty cool thing. I actually remember him talking to me about it and discussing it and some of the actual background behind it and the science, the proven factor of it. And then he is an experienced canine handler, which is my favorite part. And man, it couldn't be a better day to do anything with canines. And it's actually National Dog Day, yeah? Insane.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
And so as always, as I always do, I'll give a quick little outline of the upcoming episode, what you're about to hear about, discuss, and then we'll jump into our 3 questions as always, as long as you don't cheat on them, man. So we'll go into Adam's background a little bit. We'll discuss his founding part and how he handles, just forms Effective Fitness, what it's about, something that I think is pretty vital, which is harsh reality, which is how I labeled it. General training, he is my man is in fucking shape. We'll leave it like that. And then, of course, my favorite topic that I'm just like giddy about is canines. Canines, dogs, etc., etc. And then we'll go and get it started from there. So, you doing all right today, man?
Yeah, man. Hang in there. I really appreciate you having me on. It's this is awesome, dude. I think what you're doing is great, and I'm excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
Hell yeah, of course, man. And I have been really looking forward to getting you on too, because I feel like you just have a good personality, and you're good at, you're just really good at discussing topics and just fleshing it out too. So I think people will really enjoy it. So we'll go ahead and get with the 3 questions, and then we'll just jump straight into it. Sure. This one I think is pretty funny, and it's going to relate to canines. Who are the most difficult people to assist with canine/dog training? Men? So you
mean go ahead. So sure. You mean who is harder to train, the dog or the people?
Well, that's probably the people. I know that one.
Sure.
But no, so if you are assisting a client, who is generally more accepting of you telling them the best way to train their canine? This is what you need to do to fix this behavior, or how to work on this behavior. Are men or women more accepting of advice, tips, from you, who's actually someone who's experienced?
Yeah, in my experience with it, women do better than men.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think that is because men are know-it-alls, and they know everything, and they know everything about animals and everything.
Yeah.
So that's actually, and women are more apt to more of that nurturing. So they want the best for the animal. So they're going to listen to someone who knows more than them, unlike a male who always knows the right direction. Right. So
that's exactly why I asked that. Because, and I won't go too far off the trail, but
sure.
Sarah from Kid Fox, which was on episode 5, I had told her that a long time ago. I don't know, maybe she thought I was just joking, and I was just saying, women are better, just, trainers, handling, advice, etc. like that. But anyways, we'll go ahead and move along. And so question number 2, I think the worst thing about, well, I guess it's a pro and a con. So the worst thing about everything the virus is, it's kind of killed everything in the cinema industry. There's just nothing fucking coming out. It's just nothing but trash, low budget, poor, or it's rehash, or something like that. So what is the worst movie you have seen recently?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's probably something on Netflix. I'm trying to remember. I don't really watch too many movies unless they catch my eye. I say that because I'm usually doing other things. Damn it, you know what? There's a movie called, is it 6 Underground?
Yeah.
You seen it?
Damn, I think so. If I haven't seen it,
it's with what's his name, Ryan, whatever, and it's they're vigilantes basically, and they all fake their own deaths, and then they go and they take down this foreign government. And it's not a terrible plot, but some of the things are just all right, that's ridiculous.
Ticky-tack stuff. So
Yeah, it's just they shoot a gun that I know probably holds 17 rounds. They shoot it about 50 times with no reloads. Like, right? It's
yeah,
like the
that's
gun's jammed in the video, yet it's still shooting
damn this guy.
bullets. Like, it doesn't make sense. Anyway,
He's like a
I
fucking
digress.
robot. How did he do that?
Yeah,
So
right. It's so that mag change was
so fast,
ridiculous.
so
Yeah,
fast, blindingly. So
sure.
I'm also going to reference a Netflix movie, and I think some people actually will disagree with me, but there was a movie recently, and it has Charlize Theron, also Netflix. Cool plot. I can't even remember the name of it, honestly. I've just completely just blanked it. It's been like
Sure.
erased. But there's just one scene in particular that, and you referenced the reload and stuff like that, so it's firearm related, but so, like towards the end, Charlize Theron hands a handgun over to the protagonist of the movie, and she hands it over with her finger inside the trigger with the finger on the trigger on that, and hands it with the gun pointing straight to her. And she's here, take this for your safety. I like watched that. Yeah, I was like watching it like at 12 o'clock, and I was like, fuck. She just said, take this for your safety, but this bitch is fucking aiming that gun right at her with her trigger.
I think this is why women also hate action movies, is because men don't shut the fuck up whenever something goes on. And they're like, all right, well, you just like, because I mean, whenever I watch movies, people are like, really, dude? Like, can you just stop breaking down every fucking scene? Like,
yeah, so
I'm like, sorry, I'll still stop.
Yeah,
I apologize.
I do the same thing too, because it's just like my brain just running 1,000 miles, and I'm just picking up everything on the screen. So I'm like a fucking bird with like aluminum foil. Like there was I will end up rambling too much, but I'll keep it short. But there was I think it was one of the Fast and Furious movies, and it's
They're terrible.
Yeah, they're fucking awful. I went and saw it.
Of course you
So
did.
I went and paid money to go see that. But anyways, so we go and I don't know, it was one of the ones where they're like on the ice and there's a submarine or something fucking insane.
Yeah.
And the guy from Game of Thrones is shooting a rifle, and I lean over to my wife. I'm like, hey, that's a fucking LaRue rifle. She's like, what? That's LaRue, like the firearm, the gun. Remember LaRue from Texas? She's like, I don't fucking care. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Speaking of guys, I think we're pretty particular on bad habits or bad things. But what is the nastiest thing you have ever eaten?
Ooh, that's a great question. I've eaten some nasty shit. Probably rat.
What? Rat?
Yeah, bro.
Damn.
Not by like, it was just one of those things where it was like the killer. It was like a farm rat, so it wasn't like a city rat. So it wasn't like eating shit, right? Or maybe it was. I don't fucking know.
Who knows?
We were drunk. We were fucked up. We were hungry. We were in the middle of nowhere. It was a rat. We thought whatever. But I mean, it was one of those things. Like, I bet you won't eat it. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll eat it. And it tasted terrible. But yeah, man. Rat. Whatever. I mean,
what's like insects, grain, and stuff. So I mean, if it's like a field rat or something like that, that's not.
I mean, I don't really remember it because I was pretty fucked up. But I was in college. I was in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, and I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. So you say something crazy like that, and I was just gonna say, like, I ate cheese sticks that had been in my truck like in July, like
That's
after
pretty
8
gross,
hours.
though.
Yeah. I
That's
was about to say.
gross, yeah.
I was thinking something like that, like, but you completely
Oh,
won,
yeah, no.
You definitely beat me.
No.
So no. I'm glad you told me the rat one though. I mean the mouse, rat, whatever. All right, man. Let's go ahead and get out of this. Let's eject from the 3 questions. This part I'm going to let you focus on. I'm going to give you a little bit more detail about your actual background, and then we'll go ahead and jump right into effective fitness first. So go ahead and tell everyone about yourself.
So went to college right out of high school. Couldn't decide on what I wanted to be. I knew I wanted to help people in some capacity. So I started out actually as a pre-med major, and then I realized that I'm pretty fucking stupid. So then I decided to go to business, and I realized that business calculus was fucking hard. So then I was like, man, what can I do? And I was like, you know what? I like helping people. I like driving fast. I like shooting guns. I was like, maybe I should be a cop. And I do like arguing with people because I'm relatively good at stating my point without getting emotional and stuff like that. So like, man, you know what? Maybe I'll be a police officer. So I was like, all right, what? So then I went to go work. I went and interned at an agency for about a year, and then got hired on basically right out of college with another agency, and then I worked there till about March of this year. Left to pursue what is now Effective Fitness, and within my time in law enforcement, I did a lot of training on my own. And I'll kind of get more of that later on.
Sure.
But I did a lot of training on my own, a lot of self motivation, I guess is probably the best word, because I took my job very seriously. I wanted to be the best. And so, again, I was able to get to a position within that agency to where I was able to really kind of make a difference in the agency and kind of do what I was doing. But then, my mission changed kind of over time. And so, so now currently, I am full-time with Effective Fitness Training. I am the founder and the CEO, I guess you could say it like that, but I have a great team behind me. I have 3 other guys that are owners as well, and very experienced guys. The program wouldn't be what it is without them, for sure.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. If you want me to go into more detail about Effective Fitness, I can definitely kind of how it started.
Sure.
Definitely. Sure. Yeah. So
yeah, I was gonna say let's jump into so what I'll say one thing before we jump right into it, because I do want to talk completely about Effective Fitness and what it is, the point of it, why, et cetera, et cetera. But the one thing I was going to say was, one thing I think is very vital is self-motivation, like you just said. I think a lot of people lack that, no matter what field it is, and taking that an extra initiative to change or have a purpose or a mission, I think is pretty admirable. But I think that's what a lot of people need, is that kind of like a part of what Effective Fitness helps to initiate with people before I get too far in.
Yeah, no. So, man, self-motivation is everything, dude. It literally is responsible for your life. It is responsible for the direction of your life, and it's responsible for the actions that you take. And I think self-motivation, and just I think just like you said, in anything you do, is a critical part of growth. So I took that self-motivation, and I always kept asking myself, how can I be better? And self-assessing, man, like you have to self-assess. I self-assess once a week. Like, what do I fucking suck at? Or what am I lacking at? What are my weaknesses? And it could be anything, right? It could be anything like, hey man, your nutrition was shit this week. Hey dude, you didn't study jujitsu enough. Hey man, your fucking bench press is going down. Like you missed a workout. Like why? Right. And you have to basically reverse engineer those problems to find a solution. And that goes anything. And that can go with shooting, right? Like,
absolutely.
2 of my very good friends, and I'm actually proud to say this, I don't know if you know who Shane Coley is or JJ Racaza or even Max Michelle, but those
big names.
So those 3 guys, Shane and I are personal buddies. I talk to JJ all the time. Max is a good dude. Again, those guys, heavily support law enforcement. They're probably the 3 best shooters in the world, you could probably say. I actually talked to Shane today, man. He's going to start putting some really good stuff up on Instagram and social media. He actually doesn't teach classes, or at least to like the public yet, right? Yeah. But he's probably getting to that point. But again, you look at those 3 guys; they're all self-motivated. They are all top class shooters because of that, right? And Shane self-assesses every time he shoots. I think he told me he shoots like 4,000 rounds a week.
Oh,
so like, like one session of his is 1,000 rounds.
Now, I could be wrong. With Shane, for some reason, I'm thinking he's one of the Glock's competitive shooters. Am I right on that, or is that?
He is. Gotcha. He is the captain of Team Glock, along with Michelle and Ashley. Yeah, he's a freaking nature dude. He's insane. And believe it or not, he's also a Olympic lifter as well.
Really?
Yes, he is extremely strong. When I say extremely strong, his clean and jerk is like upwards of 300 plus.
Oh my god.
Oh, dude, he's a monster.
Yeah.
And again, he's as nice as could be. Super good guy. We hung out in Atlanta and SHOT Show a couple years ago. Anyways, great dude. So kind of get back on track. you know, those dudes really self-assess, right? Because they have to be at the caliber they're at. Again, and that can be with anybody, whether you're training martial arts, whatever. So effective fitness was something that I found that was lacking in my experience. So when I started law enforcement, I was able to interact. A lot of my friends, obviously, are cops, able to interact with a lot of different agencies, do a lot of cool things with you know, different agencies, and also get to travel the country and do cool things with other guys and you know, just get those experiences. And I was able to really find common issues within law enforcement that I felt could improve officer performance in the sense of not just like being able to run faster, but appearance wise, longevity wise, because, you know, the stats are really against law enforcement,
For
right?
sure.
Like you know, cops are 4 times less likely to, you know, sleep enough per week, right? Like I think the average lifespan of a police officer is like 57 years old,
Oh my
right?
God.
Which is like 22 years below the national average,
Yeah.
or some crazy like that. You know, again, don't quote me on those. It's all on the website, but yeah, man, it's crazy. So you see these issues, and you're like, well, why? Why are cops? I'm sorry. Why are cops obese? Like,
Right.
you know, the point is obesity is a huge problem. It's a huge problem in America. 40% of police officers are obese, right? So that's a huge, almost half, right? So that's a
Yeah.
huge
That's a huge
statistic.
chunk.
So so it basically started. I had an idea. I went to my buddy Eve, who's he's one of the owners. He's a physical therapist. And I said, hey man, I have this idea. If I'm fucking crazy, just tell me to get out of your office. And so we've been friends for a while. Eve is a very successful physical therapist. And he was like, dude, this is brilliant. Like, let's do it. So 2 years ago, we started building it out. I was still full-time law enforcement at the time, so it was a lot of work, as well as running other social media accounts,
Sure.
and trying to live my life to the fullest.
Yeah.
And so, we started building it out, and then it started really picking up. And I was like, shit, this is like awesome. We were helping police officers. We were bringing in revenue. We were able to expand it to certain things. And then we acquired Dr. Matt, who is our head PT, and IT guy. Believe it or not, He wears many hats. He is definitely plays a big role in our success. And since we got him, we've been crushing it, man. We're up to about 1,000 members currently.
Wow.
Yeah, man. And we are in talks with a few agencies of implementing a full health and wellness program with continuing education for law enforcement, doing workshops in person, even for specialized teams like SWAT, K9, et cetera. We've already done SWAT. We've already done K9 and fitness integration, which is really cool, which I think you would like to. I would definitely like to have you come down for that. I think you really enjoy it. Yeah. And so, man, it's just, and so now we have team members all over the country. We have 3 team members in California. One works for the feds. He's a SRT team leader. 2 are full-time SWAT guys out in California. We have a guy here locally. He's a sergeant with the K9 unit. He's active, former SWAT guy, really good cop. And then again, we have Dane, who is he's our PT assistant, one of our coaches, Coach Kelly, who's our programmer. She's a monster, dude. She probably weighs like 140 pounds, and she deadlifted 300 pounds for 8 reps.
That's
insane. She's a fucking stud. And then we have Eve and myself, and man, it's just great how it's kind of started, and you know, kind of where we're going with the reality of why this is important. I think this is something that you really wanted to talk about, and this is something that I definitely have an interest in, and this is where I feel like we are making the biggest impact, is the reality of what law enforcement is and what the public really perceives it, especially right now. Like they don't.
Yeah.
Do you think, let me ask you this, do you think most people know what cops do?
You know, so just based on interactions and discussions I've had with people and trying to get a both sides of the coin, absolutely not. There's a lot of misconception, and without going too far out into the deep waters and stirring up stuff, first of all, there's always going to be good and bad of everything. There are some truths, and there's a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding as well. Like I said, I think we talked about this a little bit right before we kind of got started, but like one good point is the whole escalation of defunding, which I think is silly. You take
Absolutely.
So without going too far in, we'll get right back into effective fitness, but it does intertwine. If you take away that funding, what an officer is going to be able to do is going to go down, because programs like effective fitness, they're not free. It takes time, and it takes time away from people who it's a job. It's a business.
Sure.
It's a reason. If you want to make someone who is efficient or ready, they have to be trained. So when you take away that funding, you take away that training, and I think that's one of the important parts, because one is being in good shape. You've already mentioned that, and you've already mentioned the lifespan, overweight, obesity. You take away someone who's ready or, fit or, effective, and then all of a sudden, I would imagine, I could be wrong because I'm not a law enforcement officer, I haven't been in law enforcement, but then you start to have maybe irrational decisions or unhealthy decisions, whether that be someone just, not knowing how to handle a situation. And like you said earlier, was like, how to basically have a stance or posture as a law enforcement officer, because it's a law enforcement officer. He's there to help and assist. And then from there, if things escalate, that's when you see things. But if that person is trained, they can handle the situation. And I would like to think that you don't see the stuff that we're seeing more now, or is being put under the spotlight now more so than before.
So there's a couple points you hit on that were definitely spot on, right? Like, without getting too deep, just like you said, defunding the police, it's stupid. It's completely asinine outlook, and most people have no idea, don't have the clue of what law enforcement does at any capacity, right? Like they don't really understand. So, people say cops need to be better. They need to be, they need to have better judgment. They need to have, there's a lot of science that goes into a critical incident where people don't really understand, right? So like, if you train at a high level, right, you're more than likely not necessarily going to perform at a high level in reality, but it gives you that percentage of, hey, I have been doing, mobility work, because when you get into things like vehicle CQB, you get into things like ground defense fighting, all those things require fitness, because, and our motto is fitness is the foundation of survival. Because if you don't have that, you have nothing. And kind of to start your point is, we talk about force, right? We talk about use of force. The first level of use of force is officer presence. So if you look like a sack of shit, people are going to perceive you and go, I can take him. Or if I run, this fat fuck's not going to catch me, right? But if you come out there with the command presence, you look like you look like you mean business. Dude, I've had people size me up and all this shit, and I'm like, if you're feeling froggy, bro, like jump, right? So, but most of the time, if you take care of yourself and you look like you mean business, that can de-escalate situations off the rip before a word is even said. And so, we take performance, and that goes into so many directions, just like you said. Whether it goes into use of force, whether it goes into just physical appearance, what goes into mental health and decision making, absolutely. Are cops less likely to use a weapon if they are in better shape? Sure. There's plenty of research on that, right? There's also research on for example, like audible cues or visual cues and people's response time to those things, right? Like, you're a shot timer guy, right? You like to hear the beep. So like, do a drill next time. Like the Force Science Institute has done drills at the average person response time with their finger on the trigger, point at a target, and they hear an audible beep is like, I think it's someone who is average is like 0.18, something like that. Someone that is trained can get down to like 0.16, right?
Yeah.
So that's it.
Significant.
We say, oh, that's only like 0.02 seconds.
No, that's life changing.
It's huge, but again, you have to train those things. It can come down to your abilities, and that's what people really underestimate the value of fitness, right? And not just from the aspect of reality, but I mean, you could be with your family at the mall, right? Crazier shit has happened. Shooting starts to happen. And I tell this to everybody, can you drag the heaviest person in your family 100 yards?
Yep.
If your answer is no, then you are not prepared.
Yep. You're going to be in a bad time.
Sure, exactly. Who's the heaviest person on your squad, on your team, or whatever? Can you drag him in full kit around a corner? If the answer is no, well, then that's a problem, right? We have to change that. We have to self-assess and not be complacent and not be okay with where we are. We should always be self-motivated and have the ability to self-assess and grow from there. So I think that's too is the reality of fitness and violence in general. People don't understand the role that your body takes when it goes through a violent encounter or just a stressful incident in general, right? Like things happen we don't know. If we're able to do cognitive drills while under physical distress, like we do in our programming, we do tourniquet applications, we do cognitive drills where you have to memorize things, get your heart rate up to a certain level, and then repeat that information. Now, why is that important to law enforcement? Well, you got to memorize a suspect, what he's wearing, you got to memorize a tag number, all while doing all kinds of crazy shit. Where your mind's like, wait, did I do 5 reps? Did I do 6 reps? Wow, this weight's fucking heavy. Like, and then you have to go back and regurgitate that information. You can train your mind to do that, especially with the tourniquet stuff. That's a freaking no-brainer. Cops need to be, if anybody's a cop or really anybody, you need to be carrying a tourniquet. If you carry a gun, you need to be carrying a tourniquet and you know how to use it. It's probably the cheapest training you'll ever get, but probably the most beneficial because I don't know about you, Max, but if I drive down the road, I probably go by more car accidents than I do active shooters.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's almost, if not every other day, it's almost weekly, but it's funny that you said that because I actually took one of your classes and you showed me, and again, that's another one of those misconception things, and you covered that as well. But even after that, I mean, I think one of those things is like, I knew prior how important it was, and it was like one of those things like, I'll get one sooner or later. But then when you start to see the incidents, and then especially what you see going on right now, you know, just all around, and I think it's more important, more so now than ever, to make sure. I mean, it's always important, but now, I mean, hell, sure. I have 3 technically. I have one in my vehicle that's on the back of my headrest, one in my bag that I take with me, you know, when I'm traveling, work, etc. And then I have one in my gun case as well that I throw in.
Yeah, dude, that's extremely important. Medical training is something that's also overlooked because
for sure.
There's so many videos, man, where people die, kids die, and they shouldn't have, right? Like there's so many incidents where it is a preventable death. And it could be, and it is the thing is, it could have been prevented from a $50 class with a $20 object. And that's what's so frustrating when I see these kids die or I see people die. And I'm like, yeah, that person had literally 30 minutes of TACMED training or tourniquet application training. They would be alive today and they would be perfectly fine. And it's just very frustrating. So, you know, I always tell people, hey, I hope you never have to use your shit, but if you do, you'll know how and you'll be effective. And that's, again, that is the goal.
Yeah, and I think kind of like what you said. I mean, and you'll hear people say that all the time too. It's like, well, I'd rather have it and then, you know, not need it than need it and not have it. And I think, you know, that applies to medical field, whether it be self-defense. I mean, anything really, you know, it just really, there's several different scenarios where that applies, but most definitely medical, like you just said. It's like one of those things where you drive around and someone, you know, like you said, a child or something like that, and you need it. Well, that's a perfect example of, you know, it's better to have something medical to save someone's life than not have it. For sure.
Dude, I 100% agree with that.
Absolutely. But that is really cool. So effective fitness. So let's see here. Oh, one of the things that I'm kind of always concerned, because I don't lift as religiously as I need to, and that probably effective fitness probably needs to come and kick me right in my ass one good time to get me going.
Gladly.
So with effective fitness, what does it focus on? Is it so I always think of the general, I always give it crap, but the core of the original CrossFit was more of like a mobility, daily use, fitness, cohesive. And then, you have your standard weightlifting, and a lot of that stuff is more traditional, but a lot of it focuses on mobility too. And then you have like your powerlifting, which for someone with some background in powerlifting / kind of like more bodybuilding, the one thing you lack there is always going to be mobility. You lose mobility when you start doing a lot of heavy powerlifting and a lot of heavy bodybuilding. And a lot of the times it's not really effective either. So with effective fitness, what is it? Is there a focus on it? Because I know you've mentioned strength, and then you've mentioned,
absolutely.
Agility.
So this is kind of where Dr. Matt, I don't talk outside of my scope of knowledge, right? No. But so basically our approach to it is relatively simple yet extremely effective. So, obviously we do cycles, we do periodization cycles, usually 6, 8, or 12-week cycles, right? So we try to cycle those things. We always have, some type of strength component. We always have a mobility component. We always have isolation work of that movement for that day. So if it's like a hinge movement or a pressing movement, those are things that we really focus on. So there's always a goal with each cycle. So if you're, and this is kind of the beauty of the program, is we kind of include everything. So again, it's more of, we encompass strength, we encompass mobility, we encompass metabolic conditioning, getting that heart rate up, using that to also incorporate those cognitive and tourniquet drills as well. And then we have a cool down section. So we use the minimal effective dose approach. This is extremely important for people that whose jobs they have to perform for, like a police officer. So, for example, Max, I'm sure you have been on programs where you do a workout and the next day you're like, I can't fucking take a shit. Like, I'm so sore, right? Like, you're like, I can't get off the toilet. Like, I can't walk up the stairs. I can't even put my shoes on. And this is the thing, man, is will you see results with those programs? No. Absolutely. You absolutely will, because you're doing something. But is it effective? If you're training for a purpose, yet you can't do anything because you're so fucking sore, then what's the point of training? Right? So our approach with Dr. Matt was using obviously certain percentages. So we use like the RPE. So like the rate of perceived exertion, as opposed to like do this many reps at this weight, right? So we do it based off of that person's RPE, right? So we try to stay around that 5, 6, 7, 8. And then obviously if we're doing the heavier weights like the 9, 10, so you can say, I don't know if you're familiar with the RPE, but it's basically like a percentage. Like if you were to say, do your deadlifts, do 3 sets of 5 at a 6 to 7 RPE. So it's like 60 to 70% of your 1 rep max.
Gotcha. So it's just like,
so that's kind of the approach we take, because it's more fit for that individual, right? So there's always a strength component. There's always a goal with the cycle, right? Like if your goal is to, hey, we're going to really deadlift, these next 12 weeks, our goal is to get our deadlift strong, and while also maintaining these other very important aspects of fitness, right? And so like you said, whenever you start lifting heavy, people sometimes will start to neglect things, again, but it's really, what is your priority? What is your goal?
Yeah.
We do a full range of nutrition as well. We do custom meal prep stuff. So if you want to maintain, lose, or gain muscle, no problem there. This is actually pretty cool, man. You talk about bodybuilding and stuff. I'm a huge fan of bodybuilding. I think it's great. We have a tactical bodybuilding cycle that we're actually about to release probably in a couple weeks, it's going to be a continuous cycle, but it's basically going to work on gaining muscle, while also maintaining your ability to run, sprint, agility, and all that stuff. It's really cool. And, we have a lot of science that goes into it. I really wish I get some of the physical therapists on here, man. These guys are nerds, dude. Straight up nerds. And they are awesome guys. But yeah, man, so we do that. We also do one-on-one coaching. So for those clients that want a more tailored, custom fit, we have coaches that will literally write you your own program, do all of your nutrition, keep you accountable, do check-ins, and really help you hit your goals. We also do what I think is probably our best feature too is we have continuing coaching. So what we mean by that is once you become a member, you have access to our team through the app 24/7, 365, which I think is really cool because I know awesome. When I used to buy programs, they give you a program, they're like, fuck off, go do it. Right? Like, thank you for spending your money, bye.
Yeah.
This is, you can send us a picture of your form. Coach Matt's a very experienced Olympic lifter. He's helped collegiate athletes. He's helped he's got some really cool, man. I have to hook you up with him for sure.
Yeah,
but
really cool.
Like you send us a video of your deadlift, your clean and jerk, your snatch, whatever movement you're having issue with, they'll break it down for you form wise. You're having an issue with injury. Hey man, my elbow's bothering me, my ankle, my knee. What can we do there? Well, we were getting all these complaints, and through a bunch of data and research that I've done over the past couple of years, we know that the shoulders, the knees, and the lower back are obviously the most harmed or injured by law enforcement. So we developed supplemental rehab programs to help build those up because we know people like, I got an old trick knee. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just not going to do anything. Well, it's probably the worst thing you could do is do nothing.
Yep.
Right.
Very true.
So, we developed a 12-week knee strong program, shoulder program, and lower back program to where they can do it along with their programming to build those up and become more resilient and to really not necessarily prevent injury, but just be healthier, feel better, feel stronger. Because we all know, man, when it comes to critical incidents, you don't have time to be like, man, is my form good? I'm about to drag this dude. I got to make sure that
For sure.
I got to make sure that my knees and my pelvis, extend at the same time.
Don't give out.
If I don't, no, man, you're going to pick that motherfucker up and you're going to drag him.
Yeah.
So this is why we do movements like Jefferson curls. Which people are like, what's a Jefferson curl? Well, look it up. It's a phenomenal movement. It'll make your deadlift so much stronger. But, we really incorporate all of that in this program to really fine tune what the person wants. It's basically a custom program. And, we also have, we have running programs. We have an academy prep program for those that are new to fitness or about to go to the academy. We have a push-up, pull-up program. If you want to get better at, the beach body muscles, we got those things. We really wanted to cover every aspect of fitness, nutrition, and just give that continuing education. Like we do free webinars. We had a tactical fitness webinar that we put together with our team, and we spoke about vehicle CQB. So Will Petty, not sure if you're familiar with him, but centrifuge training. If you guys have a chance to take a Will Petty class, you will not regret it. Will is a phenomenal instructor. He's a phenomenal person. He probably has more government contracts than anybody I've ever met in my life. For example, the FBI has signed an indefinite contract with him for his vehicle CQB.
That's crazy, dude.
As well as his high-risk vehicle stops. And now you actually have to take his class before you even become an FBI firearms instructor. So he's now embedded in the FBI. So, we took his stuff. Most of our instructors are instructors of his material. I was able to actually attend an FBI class where they did teach his stuff, and it was phenomenal. And so that's extremely important because we know that 67% of law enforcement engagements happen in or around a vehicle, right? So more than half. So this is why it's important to train. Again, this is why the data is so important because it gives us direction, right? It finds a problem and it gives us a direction to find a solution. That's basically what we did with effective fitness.
Yeah.
Because we know we have to get out of the car fast. We got to get to the rear of the vehicle. We got to get as much mass between us and the threat to be able to possibly stop bullets, right? Because you know that cars do have weak points, right? They also have very strong points. Like the pillars, we know that the B pillar of a car can take, 100 plus rounds of, 223, right, at a very close range. So being able to stack pillars and be able to maneuver your body is extremely important. So
yeah, that's life or death right there.
Yeah, man. Like we take all of this information, and this is why we do what we do. Like people don't train agility. Like Max, when's the last time you trained agility?
Oof. If we're talking about if we're just talking about just feet itself, yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a minute, right? But then we talk about situations of getting out of a vehicle in full kit or in full battle rattle and trying to get to the rear of a vehicle. You know how many small steps you're taking in that process? A shit ton, right? Yeah. So we got to make sure that our feet can keep up with our body, because if we can and we fall, there's a video that I posted on Police Post. You guys should check it out. An officer was being chased with a knife and was able to keep his feet under him simply because he was athletic. That is the only reason why he survived that encounter. The guy had 2 knives in each hand and was being chased, and the officer basically was doing circles, but was still able to engage and put enough rounds on the suspect to make him not a threat anymore. But the only reason why he didn't fall is because of his movements were athletic in nature, which then allowed him to survive the situation. So this is why we do what we do, right?
Yeah,
so that's basically the app in a nutshell. Go ahead.
I was just saying, but I mean, on top of an officer not getting hurt, it also prevents someone else from getting hurt, because if this person's whether it be narcotics or something else, he's in a complete rage, and we'll say worst case scenario, he puts this officer down and this officer's out of the fight, then someone who is in that level, the next thing they're going to do is they're going to look around for maybe the next possible victim or someone else to target. So that person keeps their balance, like you said, athletic, stops the situation. Obviously it's one of those situations. It's one of those issues. There's one of those issues where last resort and someone's coming out with you with deadly force. I think people always forget there's no such thing as wounding somebody or stopping them. When you pull a firearm out to defend yourself, it's a shoot to kill, and that goes not just for law enforcement, but also goes for someone who was in a self-defense, CWP, whatever, defend, et cetera, et cetera. I won't get into the laws and all that, but that's how that works.
Yeah. So just want to clarify what you said there. So whenever law enforcement wants to get into an engagement, or whenever they get into an engagement, right? So when it basically, what happens is what the officer perceives at that time, a threat of deadly force. The officer has tried de-escalation. It has failed, or it is not the right response to the situation. Then deadly force is then authorized, and deadly force is used to stop a threat, not necessarily kill, right? So it's to shoot to end the threat. So if the threat is no longer a threat, then the situation is done. Now, granted, there have been multiple incidences where individuals have been shot in upwards of 7 times and have survived the situation, because just because you shoot one time or does not mean that the person is going down by any means. People can take multiple rounds until you are able to neutralize that threat, right?
Sure. So basically stop
whatever that may be, right? And so this is why, correct. Gotcha. And this is, and this kind of goes back to why compliance is really so important in law enforcement, right? So when you're given a lawful order to do something and you don't do it, well, then that individual then escalates the situation. Then that's what kind of unfolds with basically every law enforcement interaction since the history of law enforcement, right? So, I think that the ability to perform is extremely important, especially when it gets to that level of force, right? Really, any level of force is going to require fitness, because it's a physical confrontation, whether it's in close proximity or it's at a distance. Fitness plays a role. 100% unequivocally, without without a doubt. So if you have a poor level of fitness, if you're spending more time, if you're overweight and yet you have 15 fucking Glocks with slide cuts, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to look at what are your priorities here? Because this is one thing, I don't know about you, but I can only shoot one gun accurately at one time. I can't shoot two guns accurately at one time, correct? So if you have, again, I'm all about collecting guns, trust me. But at the same time, you have to think about what's the purpose, like what are you training for? Is your goal to be well-rounded and effective? If you're trying to be fast, or you're trying to be just a good shot? Because again, like if you're fat, you're going to be easier to kill. That's basically what it is. I mean, mobility is life. Mobility equals survivability. And that's a very common phrase used in law enforcement. If you're not mobile, well, then you're a fucking sitting duck. And that's on you. So, and it sucks because whenever officers do get in that situation, it's almost like damn, I should have been training my fitness. It'd been cool to lose 10 pounds while they're getting their fucking ass handed to them on the side of the road. So,
I think,
yeah, man.
Yeah, I think, and there's something to add on to that, because just like you said, it may make yourself more effective, but also you mentioned it earlier, was basically being able to de-escalate an issue too. So when, it's one of those things where you're in absolute fear of your life and it comes down to it, instead of having to resort to pulling a firearm and neutralizing or stopping, offense, or it's not offense, but stopping an issue or stopping the other person, you can use a fitness in a way of more or less I won't say hand-to-hand combat, but it is hand-to-hand combat, but basically neutralizing a target without having to use lethal force first.
Sure, absolutely. And then, you know what, like, and I'll kind of leave it at this, is the mission is always to de-escalate, but that is not always the right action for this situation. So, deadly force is a last resort, but it can also be a first resort if that's what the situation dictates. And I think that's what people don't really quite understand about law enforcement is, and there's a lot of science. The Force Institute does some great studies on knife attacks, on human response to stress, on human response to certain situations. Like we just talked about the audible stimulus to a response, and also a visual stimulus to response. And this is why I think people need to really understand this is very important. Fitness plays a major role in the performance of a police officer. And I think agencies are slowly starting to see that, and they're slowly starting to be like, shit, we need to get them, because without this, we are making them more of a liability. And that's what we don't want, right? We want better cops out there, and they need better training. And this is why you can't defund the police, because Max, as you know, training costs money. Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, it's unfortunately, even when some agencies do have money, sometimes it's misspent, or it's not used in the way it should be. And then you add in the effect of where the common officer, Joe Schmo, no matter what, is not necessarily in hand on the part of the training, but his salary is, or his willingness to do his job at 100%. So again, you take away that defunding, and then all of a sudden, it just drops. And then the funding, and the training to make that officer more, I'll say effective, I think is the best way of putting it, effective force, or effective as at his position, you throw that away too. And then of course, defunding, you take away money, you take away salary, or you decrease salary, or the prospect of salary. And then on top of that, you take away the willingness to do your job at 110%. That's how I've always seen it too. So, I mean, I'm not sure if maybe that's a changing of the guard kind of thing, or if that's like you said, luckily it seems like it is starting to be implemented, and people are starting to notice that. And I think it also should come back to, reoccurring fitness. So it's not one of those things, like I think this is what happens a lot of times, is someone will get in good shape, they'll hit that peak, they'll hit that high, they reach their goal, and then you'll slip. And then you sneak back into kind of your, relevancy or compliance, like you said earlier, and then all of a sudden you're back where you started. So
yeah, man. People get complacent, and or they get, one of the biggest issues in law enforcement, as well as, well, it's always worked. So, but then you have to ask yourself, has it ever been opposed? And that's the thing is, if it's never been opposed, well, of course it's going to fucking always work. Yeah. Right? Like, so that's
and of course, and on top of that, law enforcement is not, society itself is not stagnant. It doesn't stay exactly the same every single year for decade for decade.
agreed.
I would imagine that, a plane back in, during Kitty Hawk and the Wright brothers is a lot different than a FA-22 now. And think about how, I think that always blows my mind. That's always why I think of technology and how things just rapidly change is, we have a crazy difference in technology and in things like that. And then you add that on top of society and the population just grows. Nothing's ever stays the same. So really you have to adapt with everything around you. And that includes, I think, as you've said, and I believe you, is implementing, making sure that fitness is a part of your job, especially in law enforcement. And I think that's really, and like I said, it's everything else too. But that's really definitely very important. And I think that it helps bring it out like in hell. I even learned something today. Shit. So, that's right. Well, and like you said, I mean, I think it comes back to misconceptions. And of course, I think something that's always important is being able to understand or listen or give the opportunity to listen. You can't just put your finger in your ear and la 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 the whole way around. You have to at least hear both sides so you can get an understanding, because like you said, it's always not many people I think do understand whether
100%.
whether or not they support or don't support law enforcement, or how you view it, or view the position, etc. Yeah, there's so many different aspects to it, especially lower pay, high stress, and then you take away defunding, and then you've got a recipe for disaster on there too.
Yes, sir.
So,
yes, sir.
But we'll go ahead and move on. We have, it's crazy. We got some other cool stuff talking about. So I'll mention, so we've really hit training really hard, so I won't go too far in. We have mentioned briefly firearms, hand-to-hand, stuff like that. So what is an effective force? Like, what is a good method of hand-to-hand combat? I will admit 100%, I did a little bit of wrestling, and when I say wrestling, I mean actual like Greco-Roman wrestling, not the fucking backyard fucking brawler, shit, fucking around with your cousins and stuff in the neighborhood. But what is an actual effective hand-to-hand combat? You've already said Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You've already mentioned the firearms a little bit, but for hand-to-hand combat, that is something that I have absolutely, I think, put off. But what is the standard? Like, what is the go-to?
So we look at what situations happen and what is the most effective martial art, because there's a lot of like Steven Seagals out there, right, that like feel like they could take your fucking pinky and throw you through a window. This is the thing, is if somebody did that to me, I'd drop them on their fucking neck. So like this is the thing, man, is jiu-jitsu, I personally feel like through my experience of trained defensive tactics for almost a decade, as well as getting a taste of other things like Krav Maga, kickboxing, Muay Thai. Jiu-Jitsu is probably the best martial art in the world. And I say that because it is a superpower. And I'll give you a very quick example.
Sure.
About 3.5 years ago, I walked my ass into a jiu-jitsu school here locally, and I knew one person who I went to high school with. And it was my first day. I didn't know, again, he was the only person I knew. And I met one of the instructors, super nice guy, black belt. He was like, hey, my name's Adam, just want to get started. And, me thinking I have some prior law, I was a cop at the time. I was like, you know what? There's some pretty small dudes in here. Like, it shouldn't be an issue, right? Well, my first partner happened to be a 17-year-old, about to be 18. Going into the military, he was probably 145 pounds soaking wet. I was probably sitting at 180. So I had about 40 pounds on him. And he killed me about 8 times in a 5-minute round. And when I mean kill me, Max, I don't mean like he just dominated. No, I mean like he took away blood from my brain. He almost broke my arm and my legs. And there was nothing I could do. And so that was extremely humbling. And again, I had to self-assess that day. I said, wow, I fucking suck. I need to get better. So I started training jiu-jitsu. I started studying it. And this is why I don't watch movies. I literally watch jiu-jitsu instructionals an hour every day. And I take notes. I have notes upon notes upon notes upon notes, because I'll tell you right now, this is the best way to put it to you. A 1 year white belt, right, which is the beginning of the journey. A 1 year white belt, if he's been training consistently 2 or 3 times a week, will kill I'd probably say 98% of the population.
Holy shit.
I am not even fucking kidding you. Like if this person has a good instructor, I don't care what your deadlift is, what your bench press is. I have rolled with dudes that have 40 pounds on me. They're 240-pound men, right? Like they're 230, 240-pound dudes, and I make them look like they're children. Like I'm playing with them. And then there's guys who do that to me. There's guys that are way less than me that it's like I'm a rag doll. Like it's like they're telling me to do these things and I do them, but they're making me.
Yeah.
And I think jiu-jitsu is extremely important. And not only that, man, it's also very good mentally. It's definitely a confidence boost in the sense if you were to get into an altercation, you know what to do. This is not the first time you've been uncomfortable in a position, right? Like, so jiu-jitsu is being comfortable in an uncomfortable position. And plus, like, I've never met somebody at any gyms, and I've been to gyms all over the country, that is an asshole. I've met guys that are kind of assholes, but they're not mean, they're not bad. You're literally trained to kill each other, but then you're friends at the end of the round.
Like
so
said,
again, I think that jiu-jitsu is great. I think that wrestling is also involved in jiu-jitsu, right? You have your stand-up stuff, which is really important. Judo is good too. Judo's no fucking joke. Muay Thai and kickboxing, great martial arts to add in. And those are the real martial arts, man. All this like karate and all these fucked up names I don't know. Like, sure, they might serve a purpose. Cool.
It's very specific.
But like, if you were to, man, this is the thing, man. Like, especially for law enforcement guys, like the fights are going to the ground. Like, I can't remember the statistics, but I'm pretty sure it's like between 65 and 70% of law enforcement uses of force go on the ground, because you got to think about it. A combative suspect is not going to be arrested standing up.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to be able to do your own thing if they're not showing their hands. And plus it also looks better. Like you don't have to beat the shit out of somebody. You don't have to punch them in the face to get their hands. There are ways to get hands out of places. There are ways to do things that are way more effective, and that it also looks better on camera, which is also important, right? It shows that you are a highly trained, highly skilled individual, and you take pride in what you know. So again, hand-to-hand combat, firearms training, I think is also very important. I think that if you are a CWP holder, you should at least take one class a year, one legitimate firearms class a year.
I agree totally. I think that is so. Now I will say, recently I have not been able to shoot quite as much as I was probably the past 2-3 years, more or less because of ammo. It's one of those things. Right. I still train, I'll still mess with it, and I'll still pull from a holster and stuff like that, or at least when I do go, I'll make the best use of a certain amount of ammo, so I'm not just bleeding. I don't have to, that's what I'm saying, I don't have to shoot 1,000 rounds in a session to get a good session in. So, whether that be reloading or drawing or getting comfortable or realizing I'm messing something up, kind of like what you said earlier, just assessing or something like that, knowing when to focus on it.
Sure.
And I think that's
that's extremely important. I also
and taking classes. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. So I do a thing too. So I'm a big numbers guy. I'm a big factual person, as you know. I like to think of my training as percentages for me, right? I feel like that 50% of my training, and this goes for anything. This goes for cop, Joe Blow off the street. 50% of your training should be fitness and defensive tactics. That's it, right? 50% you should be doing your fitness at least 3 to 5 times a week. You should be training your defensive tactics at least twice a week, right? So every day. you should be training your medical 30% of the time. Stop the bleed, CPR, making sure your gear is ready, making sure your gear is prepped. You should also, one thing too is keep up with current events. 30% of the time, you should be keeping up with current events of what's going on in your area, right? Because again, you don't want to be driving with your family and all of a sudden you're like, man, I want to go downtown. You go downtown, and there's a fucking riot now, right? And people are, getting dragged out of their cars and shot. Like, try to avoid those places. Don't be that guy that goes there like, I'm ready to, I'm a patriot or whatever. Like, all right, like, don't be a fucking American for a second. Like, be smart. Like, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that. And for anyone who wants to buff their chest up, there was a really good episode, and if some people may know him, and his name is Shrek McPhee, and he's also known as the Sheriff of Baghdad, who was a big bad motherfucker, kind of like Adam, but he was in Delta Force. But he also is very much all the mix of what we're just talking about, whether it be fitness. And he's definitely a fucking shooter, and he looks the part, and he has his hand-to-hand combat as well. But additionally, one key thing that he always said when someone would ask, I think it may have been one of the Q&As for his podcast, and it was if you were in a situation of a shootout, and you have your family, do you stop and turn around to more or less confront the target? And the first thing he said was, well, first, anywhere I go, the first thing I do is look for an escape. And the first thing I'm going to do in the threat, the first thing I will do in a threat is try to get my family and myself out and escape. Not sit there to gunfight and possibly get your family hurt or take yourself out of the fight. It was something along those lines, but avoiding conflict if possible.
Yes, again, de-escalate, and this goes for everybody. De-escalation is always the mission, is always the goal, but it's not always the answer for the situation. And I say that, and that's for cops. That is for any interaction you come with somebody. If people are getting their ass kicked for no reason now, right? Like they're getting robbed, they're getting ass kicked. Again, if you can avoid that at all costs, well, then you win the encounter. Absolutely. This is not a win-lose thing. You don't have to be a fucking Billy Badass here, right? So again, 50% firearms, fitness. Defensive tactics, fitness, 30% your medical training, as well as your current event status, and also maintaining what you have in the sense of like, is your vehicle prepped? Do you have enough for a hurricane? Do you have enough for
absolutely
right whatever situations?
Tornado, earthquake,
be prepared.
Fucking 20%, volcano, anything.
Right, exactly. 20% should be your firearms training. People are like, but it's guns and 2A and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's great, man. But like, most gunfights happen within like 6 feet. I can't remember the exact stat, but it's very close.
It's like 4 to 6 feet average.
Right. So if I've been training hand-to-hand combat for the past year, 2 or 3 times a week, and you have not, and I don't let you get your gun out, who you think's going to win?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So like, there's a guy called Craig Douglas. He owns ShivWorks. I highly suggest anybody listening.
I don't
know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he is the man. He is the man. And he will tell you that de-escalation is always the mission, but it's not always the answer for the solution. You can avoid it at all costs. But again, 20% of that, 20% of your training should be your firearms, your tactics. One reason is because you're less likely to ever use that in a situation, right? It's obviously an important role. But, again, you take one class a year, you shoot once a month. Sure, you're not going to be spending crazy amount of money. Now, don't get me wrong, if you're a gun collector and you have extra money to throw away, but don't say, yeah, man, I just bought 15 rifles this year, or I built 15 rifles this year, but I'm 40 pounds overweight. Like, it's just, I don't know, like in my mindset, it's like, cool, so you're useless unless like, that's the thing. No. So like, what other skills do you possess? If I'm about to get into a fight, do I want you with me? Like, are you on the A team, or are you on the fucking team that's going to Wendy's? Like, I don't, you know what I mean?
No, I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
That's just how I view people, man. So again, is it Is it wrong? Sure, but that's just kind of how I am. That's kind of how I feel about training overall. Is again self-assessment. If I know that I'm lacking in my firearms training, then I'll change that percentage, right? But then I always make sure that I'm at a level to where I feel like I can perform for any situation. Because if I can't perform, then I fail.
Yeah. And then if you fail, then that might put others at harm too. So, and nothing that goes with anybody really. So
exactly.
But absolutely, I do agree, and I think that's one key thing. I think I had kind of like a realization of that a couple years ago, and it may have been you who did it, because I will admittedly admit I am a complete gun collector. Most of it is just value or collection or anything kind of cool. But then I kind of started realizing that I kind of need to know what the fuck I'm doing half the time. So taking classes, actually, or it doesn't matter how many guns you buy if you don't have a nice thing of ammo to actually shoot with those said guns, and good ammo, not cheap crap. And then on top of that is knowing how to manipulate a firearm, how to use a firearm. Do you have a sling?
Sure.
What's the point of having a rifle if you don't have a sling? Or having it's kind of like I've answered this question a couple times. People have asked me. I'll admit some of the stuff I have is you can consider is Gucci guns, I guess. Some of it is more just me seeing a good deal and me jumping on it or taking advantage of a great deal, and then I collect it. But at the same time, sure, you need to know what you're doing. You need to know how to use it. It doesn't matter how nice your rifle is if you use a piece of shit scope on the top. Like I've seen that. I do not understand that, why someone will spend thousands of dollars on a really nice rifle and then they will completely cheap out on an optic, for instance, or not buy a sling. What's the point of having a quote-unquote self-defense weapon if you don't even have a weapon sling? Do you know how heavy that gets after you've been carrying it all day? It gets really...
I actually do. It's very heavy.
It's the fucking worst. It's like on paper, it's like, oh, it's only 6 or 7 pounds, but then you have a mag. Then if you have multiple mags, and then on top of that, sure, all fucking starts to weigh you down, and the muscle cramps and all that stuff. It ain't fun. It definitely.
This is why fitness is important. This is why your longevity is so important, because again, all that ties into what? Your level of fitness, because it's the foundation of you. So yeah, man, I 100% agree about the Gucci guns. Don't get me wrong. I love nice guns. I love the red dots. I love all the fancy shit. But at the same time, it's like I think you have to really self-assess of like, if you're a gun collector, sure, and you have that extra and you can spend that money, but also still maintain. Again, it's just, what's your mission? What are your priorities?
Yeah, sure. It's a balance. Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those. It's definitely one of those things where, I mean, like you pretty much just hit the nail on the head. But it's the same thing with people building the same gun but a variant of it, and then having it's just, well, you didn't really accomplish too much, or at least have some kind of resale or some kind of value to it. But yeah, absolutely. Man, I absolutely agree with you on that one. You can be a lot more effective with one gun that you know how to manipulate, instead of trying to collect a bunch and then end up getting a couple guns and then you don't know what the hell you're doing, or you haven't trained with one. It makes a difference. It really does.
Sure.
Or buying useless. I would say, like you mentioned it earlier, like the slide, for instance, is useless upgrades that are unnecessary to whatever firearm that you don't.
Right.
Or I think the common conception is, if you buy this, it'll make you a better shooter. Or using this will make me a better shooter, or make me more effective. And that's not always the case. If you can't shoot with a basic rifle and a mil-spec trigger, then a Geisley 2-stage is not going to help you too much. Or actually, it might make you worse, because you might end up having a couple trigger slips a little bit there.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I've seen that happen. I have seen it happen.
Me too.
Very cool. Too. Man. I definitely agree with that. Let's move into something a little more light. More light. I am very passionate about dogs, canines, as are you. I think you really, and that is, and we're talking about misconceptions, this is another one. And I would say, Adam, you have thinking about it, you have really entirely changed my perception, handling, training. Really everything I do is based around 99% of what you taught me, went over. Give me a little bit give everyone a little bit of background about your experience and background as a handler.
Sure. So, I really wish I could take all of the credit for what I've taught you, but that I cannot do that. But yeah, so I was very, I just love dogs, right? Like, so I grew up with dogs. I have 3 dogs currently in the house with me. They're all assholes, but I love them dearly. and you know what? I was just so intrigued with the ability of especially a working dog to do what they do. I was like, man, it's so cool. These dogs are so well trained. First off, they're beautiful, right? Like you got these European breed. I mean, you got these European dogs that, I mean, they're not the American Shepherd. They are like a German Shepherd. They're a Mal, they're a Dutchie, they're mixed, whatever. They're beautiful animals and they're so fucking smart. And I was like, they're such an asset to law enforcement. I was like, but why? And growing up, my mom always told me, like, Adam, you're the kid that always wanted to know how things worked. Like you always want to know how the microwave worked, like how the fucking printer worked, how the floppy disk thing worked, back in the day. So I was like, you know what? How do canines do it? And I've always wanted a German Shepherd. And so I went up and I met Doug Wanamaker over there at up there at Astro Kennels, and I bought a puppy that wasn't even born yet from one of their litters. And I told them this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to train a police dog. And I did not know what that entailed. I can tell you this. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of money. And this is the thing though, is I'm so glad that I spent that time and money doing it. Countless hours of driving all the way to the kennels, which was about 3.5 to 4 hours from my house, every weekend for about almost 2 years, if not longer. Wow. And I spent a lot of time with Doug, who is probably one of the best dog trainers I could probably say in the country, or if not the world, when it comes to law enforcement dogs. As you know, Doug is a phenomenal trainer, and I basically was able to apprentice him for my entire time there, and was able to basically raise my dog from a puppy to a basically a non-working police dog. Is basically what Gilly is. And man, it was awesome. I met so many great people. I had, being in law enforcement and being able to do that, I did get access to certain training days, and I got to attend canine SWAT integration workshops. I got to do all kinds of cool things. I learned the art of decoying, which was phenomenal and a lot harder than people think. And it's very taxing on the body.
So with decoying, fitness. What exactly is decoying for people who may not know?
So decoying is basically you're training the dog to engage a person through certain drives, right? Dogs have certain drives. They have the fight drive, the prey drive, fear drive, survival drive. So there's all these drives that dogs have, and to have a police dog, you have to isolate a certain drive, right? And usually you want that fight drive, which is like, for example, your dog doesn't see a person as a higher being. A dog sees a person as an equal, and that's how he's able to fight him. So it's like, that's why good police dogs, I say that because there are very bad police dogs, and there are some really bad handlers and trainers out there as well that do bad things to good dogs to turn them into bad dogs. But Doug does not do that. My dog is very playful, tails wagging. He wants to be there. And that's kind of what you want. So the art of decoying is you're marking certain behaviors to really bring out those drives and develop the dog into its full potential.
Gotcha. Now we'll say you may not actually you don't know this, but I've actually spoken with Astro Kennels, and they're going to end up getting on the podcast maybe in a couple weeks.
Scheduled awesome.
So we'll definitely catch back up and get deep into that.
Let me know.
Yeah,
to talk shit. I know all their secrets.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. They are great people, and I'm gonna do a little shameless plug. If you guys are ever in the Greenville or Simpsonville area, definitely go hit them up.
Absolutely.
They are very good at what they do. I have learned a lot. They don't just train your dog; they will train you, and that's Again,
That's
as Max
90% of
knows,
it.
that is the most important part.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 90% of it. I think, we won't get deep into canines too much, but I
Sure.
will say that, it definitely is the handler, the trainer itself. That is that's really what creates the interaction and how the training will go forward. You yourself have to adapt and learn. And I think that I've always told people, like you said, money. I'll definitely say money's a lot of it, but I also say, on my side, patience is one virtue that I think a lot of people lack, especially training dogs, no matter the
Yes,
dog.
I agree.
Patience is, I think there was one thing you told me, and I literally tell myself this anytime I'm training or doing any kind of session with my shepherd, is if it's not going well, end on a good note and just put them up,
Put
end
them
it,
up.
have good patience, good stature, do not, patience is a virtue. You can't snap, you can't lose your cool. It's the dogs, man. It's incredible how intelligent they are. They really, one, people don't deserve them. Two, they do not get the credit for how intelligent and how they pick up, read things.
They don't. They're so smart, man.
They are.
They're so.
It's incredible.
Dude, Gilly is so smart. He's an asshole. Don't get me wrong. He is a 100% working dog. He has the drives. Yeah. He tears shit up. He is an asshole, 100%. But I'll tell you right now, that dog has my back. I don't worry. I don't set an alarm. I'll leave the garage door open. I'll tell you right now, anybody breaks into my house, I don't have to get a gun because they're going to shit their pants as they run away. Because that dog, dude, he scares me when I come downstairs and he's, it's pitch black dark and he's in the crate and I don't see him. He hasn't seen me and he barks and I literally am like, oh my God, I couldn't imagine breaking into this house and being like, oh my God, there's a beast in here somewhere.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And
man, I'm just so glad you have a phenomenal dog. You definitely done great work with him. And it's definitely always cool to see your stories for sure.
You can't beat them. And just like you said about the American and stuff like that, it's a shame that the breed really has dipped in quality because of that. American, European, and we're not talking about, when I say European, we're not talking about German either. We're talking about those bloc countries, those Czech, Belgian, Holland, all those areas, not your West German. Yeah, you're not your West German shepherd,
They're a different breed, man. They're fucking dark and just
absolutely
fucking monsters. I love them.
Land sharks, land gators.
Yes, sir. Love them.
Awesome, man. This has been a lot of fun. But I love talking about all this stuff, but I'll end up getting wrapped up. But what's some outside activities? It sounds like you really don't have any fucking outside activities, to be honest, man. You got stuff going every way.
Sure, yeah, man. So outside activities, when you're a small business owner, you grind, dude, and some of the stuff I post is you fucking wake up and you earn it every day, man. Like
Absolutely.
Nobody's gonna give you shit. Nobody owes you shit. Fucking wake up every morning and seize the day. I make sure, and one thing that's really helped me is my schedule. I'm a big schedule guy. I make sure that, and I try to stick to it to the best of my abilities. I'm always on meetings, Zoom calls with people all over the world, trying to not only generate more business, but really affect more people and make them more effective. But yeah, man, if I'm not doing that, I'm studying jiu-jitsu, I'm working out, I'm training, hanging out with the dogs, yeah, man, that's really my free time. Again, I don't have like a favorite TV show.
Sure.
I don't really watch that many movies unless somebody's like, hey, bro, I need to watch this movie. I study a shit ton of body cam footage. And again, I'm just motivated, dude. I want to retire in like 10 years.
Hell yeah. You sound like the guy from Fang Bros and Corvo. He just, all he does is just, as he said,
grind.
Grind doesn't stop. Grind doesn't stop.
Man. Just fucking, again, my dad always told me, man, he's like, son, nobody owes you shit. And a successful man said he has three options. One, he can give up. Two, he can keep going forward. Three, he can run through whatever obstacles he wants to. But what makes a man successful is knowing when to run through or to go around. And those are kind of three things that I've always kind of taken to heart. And I just realize whenever I feel like, man, I just want to sit on the couch and just do nothing for an hour, I'm like, you're a bitch. Get to work.
Hell yeah.
You know, and you just grind it out, dude. Fucking again. Why do Lamborghinis? I never get that meme. Why doesn't Lamborghini have commercials on TV? Well, they know that their clientele is not sitting on the couch watching TV.
Fucking badass. And it's fucking true. You tell me, you
true.
message me and tell me if you ever seen a fucking Lamborghini commercial, because I never fucking have.
I've never seen it, and that makes sense as to why, because their clientele doesn't give a fuck about what's on TV.
Yeah,
because they're grinding and they're driving around in Lamborghinis.
That's right, dude. Hell yeah. That's awesome. So we'll go ahead and conclude this one, kind of wrap it up. But first, I need to make sure one thing. How do people reach you with Effective Fitness? What is the best way to get in touch with you?
Absolutely. Guys, check us out on Instagram at effective.fitnesstraining. You could also follow Police Post. It's one word. And we try to put out information on there. We put out information on there daily. If you have any questions regarding fitness, if you're new to fitness, if you want to get into Olympic lifting, one-on-one coaching, nutrition questions, our team will always answer the DMs there. You can also send us an email at coach@effective.fitness, no.com. And we will definitely get back to you guys. We have a website. Again, you can get that all through Instagram. Max, I really appreciate you having me on, man. You're a good dude. I think this is a great podcast. And if you
much appreciated.
I would love to come on again, man.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we'll definitely reschedule it up and touch back on and get some stuff in, and we'll rehash it again and maybe get some more. Maybe it'll be me. Maybe I'll be the one after a fucking jiu-jitsu class, because now I'm kind of amped up. Now I want to fucking take jiu-jitsu.
Do it.
I need to fucking take jiu-jitsu and get my ass kicked by some fucking little 12-year-old. I'm ready for it. I'm excited. I'll just accept it at this point, you know.
And you'll thank me in about 2 years. Trust me.
Hell yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for coming on, man. I really do appreciate it. Again, we'll have all those links for everything he just mentioned. We'll have it tagged as well, tagged in the blog post. So if you maybe are like me and you hear something and it doesn't click, then I'll have it right there in front of you to click on it directly. Don't fuck up like me. Do not add .com to the email. Yeah, I fucked it up. I admit it. I added .com. But hell yeah,
all
dude.
Good, bro.
Thank you again so much for coming on, man. It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. A lot of good information. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Stay safe.
Yeah, man.